set your intention to do. And that keeps them up, but I can tell you that their spirit still gets so down. And then they take that into the rest of the process. So their mindset is, oh, something else bad is going to happen. Do I deserve this? And the answer is you absolutely deserve it. You absolutely do. And as Trina was saying, like, I mean, one of the things, I have a life coach. So one of the things my life coach says is that you don't get what you deserve, you get what you require.
Hello.
So make them work for your business.
Right.
Oh.
Hello. Say it again. Say that one more time.
That's quotable.
You don't get what you deserve, you get what you require.
Hello.
Make them work for your business.
Yes.
All right, now drop the mic. Boom.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you know, and I wanted to make sure that we shared a couple of comments from our listeners, and I have one from Phil on the East Coast, from the DMV, and he was sharing that when he and his wife set out to buy their last house, it was the agent that tried to determine where he thought they should live, as opposed to having problems with the banks or potential sellers. Can you guys kind of address that one?
Were they purchasing a property in a different state?
As far as I know, it was still in his community in Maryland.
Because I think that happens a little bit more often when they're definitely purchasing in a different state, because they're relying on the agent. And it goes back to, I'm going to keep it simple, it's just sometimes people are unintentionally, they're like, oh, once they find out more about you, oh, you might like this area. And it's an area that, you know, more of your people live in, but without them actually saying that. So sometimes I do think that it's unintentionally. And there are agents out there that, you know, probably still do it intentionally. I haven't experienced that myself, where it's an agent thinks that you should live there. But I have seen where people are not familiar with the area, and then the agent just assumes that you want to live in a particular area. And then sometimes, like I said, too, the person may come and, you know, even at me, if they come at me and say, hey, well, I want to live in a diverse neighborhood. I say, okay, I'm going to send you some communities. And when I say I'm going to send some communities, I send them communities in all different areas. And I tell them they have to look up the demographics themselves, because I'm not going to tell them exactly, hey, this is where predominantly Asians live, or predominantly Caucasians, or predominantly Latinos, or, African Americans. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to have them do their own research and let them figure out. I may ask them more questions. What do you want to be nearby? But I don't see it. So to answer your question, to kind of wrap it up, I don't see it as obvious if they're in the same state, at least out here in Nevada.
Yeah, and he was saying it was in the same county that he wanted to live in. And so he was dealing with a local agent, and he's a local guy. So obviously he knew, what are you trying to do here? So that is another issue I guess we haven't.
He needs to get another agent. I've heard stories, but as soon as that happens, I'm telling this to everybody, your agent have to work for your business too. So he needs to get another agent, because if you're not on the same page, you need to first trust. Like, I'm not going to work with a client that doesn't trust me, so, and vice versa. Like, I'm going to work hard for you. I'm going to do everything that I can for you, so I need you to trust me, and vice versa. So if his agent is trying to force him in one area, and this is for anybody, then you need to fire your agent, and you need to get another agent.
Okay, and we always appreciate our questions from Phil, and we have another question from Susan, and she was asking, why does it appear that in neighborhoods with similar homes, in white neighborhoods, that same house it's worth more. So you may have, let's say, you have a house in Compton, the same exact house almost, and then you go down to Burbank, and there's that same Cape Cod, and the house in Burbank is listed for $700,000, and the one in Compton is listed for $500,000. Why does that happen?
Well, off the top of my head, I mean, they're going to also look at other demographics, such as crime rate. And you named two different. I'm from Southern California, so I'm quite familiar with both areas. So they're going to look at statistics as well. And that's going to help determine the value of the house.
Let's make it a little easier. Let's say Pasadena and Burbank, similar situated.
still, because I'm kind of familiar with, I still say, whether I'm familiar with it or not, I still say some of the reason it could be redlining, right? And I will agree with Vamitra that it's hard to prove that it's redlining because banks do control interest rates and stuff in certain areas. Also, too, as far as the loans and stuff in certain areas, they get to dictate that. And then also, too, if we do a little more deeper dive, and I would have to do that to really say for sure this is what it is, but in some cases it is, they do look at the crime rate in certain areas, and that will determine what the value of the home is. And I'm quite sure, which is hard to prove, and I guess I have to do do a digger research on it too, is what does the demographics look like? Because in certain areas, and we'll be honest, usually certain areas that is predominantly Caucasian, a lot of times they are worth more than another area that is not predominantly Caucasian.
So
usually.
And I'll ask Wavitra the same question because, in the East Coast, we'll look at Prince George's County, for example. A lot of money in Prince George's County, a lot of education, some big fabulous homes in Prince George's County, and using the crime model as part of the criteria for the last 10 years, crime has been going down, and from a variety of strategies and community-based programs and so forth. But when you look at that same house built by that same, let's say, NV. You know what I mean? That same house built by that same builder. You have all of you have the sunroom and the stainless steel porches and all that stuff. And when you put that same house in a similarly situated neighborhood, the big yards, 3,000 acres and all that stuff. And when you compare the two, the one in Prince George's County may be $100,000 less than the one in Montgomery County or in Charles County or some of the other places. So, again, my question is, why does that seem to occur?
I have seen that, and I have had sellers complain about that. Big sigh. But what I can say is I do believe that Prince George's County is doing a better job of normalizing the home sale, rate, the home sale values.
So what does normalize mean for a layman?
So what does that mean? That means that they really are looking at the market value and really making real determinations on value based on the. I always ask that question, like, so who determines value, right?
Exactly.
But it really is about, sometimes. I'll give you an example. I have a house in Fort Washington. We got 3 houses for sale on that same block, and the house across the street, the seller is just ready to. An investor bought it. Seller's ready to go. Bought it on a short sale. Seller's just ready to go, and reduced it by well below. These houses were over $500,000. Reduced it below that, right,
Mm-hmm.
down to like mid 4s, and just for a quick sale. And it literally said for a quick sale. When that happens, when you devalue it yourself,
okay,
it becomes a problem because in the appraisals, they come in based on the last 6 months of sales in that neighborhood, on that street. So it forces everybody to take a reduction, and then that just, that kind of, so some of it we're doing to ourselves because we're just ready to move. We're tired of it being on the market for a long time or whatever it might be. But I do think, so when I say normalizing, I mean that they're really taking a look at what you're saying, which is this is a similarly situated house in a similarly situated area, so it should be valued at the same. And honestly, it's up to us as realtors to take our comps and say, look, this house here is the same house as this one here, and we should have the same value. So it's on us to try to wanted to use the word fight with appraisers because that's kind of what we do.
Right.
But at the same time, we do try to work cooperatively with them and bring them outcomes, meet them at the property. Here's our comps, right?
Sure.
So that you don't have it artificially devalued. But
Wow.
to get some situations where the appraisers are like, they're not easy to deal with. I mean, it's you fight them, and then you don't win, and then that appraisal sticks with the house for 6 months, and so some of it we do to ourselves, but there are some areas where we still need some work, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Wow, those were.
And you have to look past just the houses too. So you have to look at what's in the surrounding area. So what do you drive by to get to the house? You have to look at, is it close to the highway? I mean, there's quite a few factors that they look at to help determine what the value is going to be in a certain area. And it's hard to say two houses are the same. That's kind of the thing we say is that there's two houses that are, pretty much the same, and especially if it's in a different area. And even from an appraised value, they won't compare a house that's, let's say out here in Nevada, Aliante compared to, McDonald Ranch, or, it's just two different areas. Yeah.
Well, let me ask this question too, and then I'm turning it back over to Brother Thinbag because I see he's chomping at the bits. Do you also have those same type of pricing disparities between communities that are predominantly Caucasian?
I think so. Yeah, I think you do have similar issues. I do.
Yeah, I agree too.
I've seen it in Northern Virginia more.
Okay.
Where it is different, depending on where the house is situated. So I have seen it in other areas too. Yeah. And we mentioned gentrification a little bit, but
sure.
When you start looking at that, and I'm just thinking about Prince George's County in general. So we make the housing prices the same as in, I call it Wayne's World, up in
right.
up in Woodmore,
sure.
as it is down here in Clinton, right?
Right.
So you have similarly, so you normalize the prices. So what happens to affordable housing, which is a big deal, and then the gentrification of those neighborhoods for people who grew up here, lived here, want to work here, but can't necessarily afford that level of house. Like, what do you do? So
I'm glad you brought that up.
That has to be looked at. Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up. This is one of the other things that I've heard throughout the years, that affordable housing actually drives down the value of the big time mega mini mansions and all that kind of stuff. Is that true?
So that when you talk about affordable housing and making affordable housing available in communities,
sure.
People the homeowners are very concerned about that. Yes, they are.
So
it's a concern.
So you're sort of caught in a quagmire in I guess, and I'm talking from a layman's perspective now. So you're trying to improve the opportunity for people to become home buyers, because the theory is, of course, if you own it, you're going to be more willing to pick up those cups and cut the grass and all that type of stuff and create a better sense of tranquility. But from a dollars and cents perspective, when I start bringing in houses, let's say around $200,000, just for the sake of this discussion, and most of the houses within that 5-mile radius are going for $700,000, it starts to pull those $700,000 home values down. Is that what I'm hearing?
So yes, that's what you're hearing. That is the concern. Because we're just starting to have that real conversation about affordable housing, I don't know that there are many statistics out that support that. But what I can say is that I believe that there are solutions to it. I believe that there are ways to make it comparable throughout, so that you do require a certain percentage of homes be affordable in all neighborhoods, not just in Clinton, and not just in Oxon Hill, but also in Woodmore, and also in Fairlawn.